Hi guys, how are you? This week we are talking all about Moses crossing the Red Sea with the Israelites. So a story that's pretty familiar to most of us, but we're going to dive into that with the kids. Before I even get started on that, thank you last week for those of you who filled gaps, worked several or all of the services, and who just really helped make our weekend into baptism successful. I think it's a huge win when we take the kids in. It's so fun to have the conversations, and I know for those that teach Starting Point, they hear lots of conversations about baptism, and that often and usually sparks the interest to get baptized, and then which leads them to our Starting Point class, which leads them to actually accepting Christ. And so it's a super exciting process. So thank you for helping us make that successful. It is no joke sometimes to take that amount of kids safely and to get them all situated, especially at the 11, but we did it and it was a huge win. So thank you. Okay, so back to this week. So Moses in the Red Sea, and so for your pre-service, pre-large group activity, you can do a long jump activity, and so you can set up some marks like with your boxes or whatever. You can take some tape if you want and have the kids stand at a certain spot, each one of them, and see how far they can jump. So this isn't a running jump. It's just talking about standing still and then leaping as far as they can, and wherever they have to fall forward. If they fall back, it's the mark of where their hands landed. So they're going to jump forward, take it back to those days of elementary school. What was that called? Field day. That's when we had to do long jump. And so you can run a little contest with your group, let them have a couple turns depending on the size of your group, but then just talk about how if maybe you were crossing a little stream or something, you could hop over it, but when they got to the Red Sea, they couldn't hop over it, and so God had to make a way. So you can just kind of intro the storyline that way, but it's just a fun way to kind of connect it in their brains. And then we'll go into large group. And for post-large group, lots of discussion questions. There will be a map also that you can show where Egypt is and then where the Red Sea is and kind of the path of all of that. And so I think that's a great visual. I'm sorry I don't have it right now. I'm working from home today and I just don't have it. I don't have a printer. So, but just take a second to look at that when you get into the service hour. But it's very simple, but just a visual for kids to look at. And so make sure that you are reviewing the story and talking through the questions and kind of working through all of those questions and conversations that apply what we've learned to their lives. And so an object lesson for this activity, we've done it before. It's been a few years, but so we'll revisit it. So you will have some bowls of water available to you. You can choose to do this different ways. If you want to give each child in your group their own bowl, you can. Just have a super solid plan before you go into small groups, but they only need a thin layer of water in there. So you can give each child, there'll be styrofoam bowls, and so you can give them, pour some water in. You pour the water in, not the children. And then allow them to sprinkle in some pepper. They will have their little glass pepper shakers actually, so you'll have like a few per group. And so what you're going to do is take the water and you're literally going to sprinkle your water all the way. It's fun if there's a lot of pepper, so that's totally fine. You want your kids to have a lot of pepper, and this is going to represent the Red Sea. Remind them that the Red Sea really isn't red, so it's fine if the pepper's not. And so you're going to talk about how this represents the Red Sea and just review that the Israelites were here. The Egyptians were coming after them. They were scared. They didn't know what to do. There was mass amounts of them. And they just weren't sure like what they had just done and why they had followed Moses, and they thought they were going to die. So you can talk about how we can't separate the pepper. If we put our fingers in, it doesn't do anything. And so it actually did do a little something to mine because I was just fiddling with the soap. But typically that won't happen. And so you can talk through about that and then ask And then remind them how God asked Moses to put his staff down and the water separated. So you can take a toothpick with some soap on it, and what's going to happen is you're going to put it in. And did you see how that happened? This is a one and done kind of thing. So make sure that, you're following directions, but it works really well. The pepper immediately separates when you put in just a little bit of dish soap. So you can see I just had the tiniest bit on here. So you'll have a little container. I just had this little thing right now, but you'll have a little plastic container with your dish soap in it, so they can each get some and go through it. We'll practice in our team time just so you're completely aware again, because it doesn't work if you try to do it again, because once the soap is in there, the pepper no longer stays. But it's just a fun way to talk about how we can't do things on our own, but God can do extraordinary things, right? He calls us to do to be obedient, and then he does extraordinary things through us. And so Moses had the same experience. All right, so that's it for this week. Make sure you take time in your small group, if you can in any way, to pray with your group. Maybe it's at the beginning of your small group, maybe it's at the end, whatever that looks like. But it's just important to pray together corporately and to encourage kids to learn to do that as well. So that is all. I will see you guys very soon. Have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the snow and pray for spring. All right, see you soon.